Ladies and gentlemen, let us speak plainly today. The world is not fair. It never was, and it never will be. Fairness is a tale told to the weak to keep them compliant, hopeful, and quiet. Power does not respond to cries. It responds to leverage, influence, pressure, results. The illusion of fairness is one of the most effective tools ever created to maintain control over the masses. It promises justice but delivers obedience. It is not a principle, it is a narrative, a carefully constructed myth designed to pacify, to delay uprising, to make the oppressed believe that if they simply wait their turn, their reward will come. But in reality, fairness is not a system. It is a sedative. It tells the powerless to stay calm, to behave, to follow the rules crafted by those who will never be bound by them. The moment you begin to demand fairness from a structure that was never designed to serve you, you admit that you are subject to that structure. You place yourself beneath it, accepting that its approval is necessary for your survival. That is not strength. That is not strategy. That is submission under the mask of virtue. Those who write the rules are never subject to them. They create order not out of morality, but out of necessity, to preserve their position, their dominance, their legacy. And when they speak of fairness, they do not mean equality. They mean stability. They mean keeping things as they are. When the masses cry out for justice, they are handed procedures. When they ask for equality, they are given process. But those who hold real power understand that fairness is a currency they can spend, not a law they must follow. They give just enough of it to prevent revolt, just enough to keep hope alive, but never enough to threaten their throne. To beg for fairness, then, is to accept this arrangement. It is to accept that you are not the architect of your life, but a petitioner in someone else's court. You kneel, waiting for a verdict. You obey, hoping for recognition. You suffer, expecting rescue. And when that rescue does not come, because it never will, you are told to be patient, to trust the process, to be better next time. The powerful watch in amusement. They know that those who wait for fairness will never take power. They will never rise. Because they have already been trained to believe that the system is sacred, that change must be requested, not demanded, that the rules are immutable rather than tools to be bent, broken, or rewritten. Fairness is also a mirage that keeps people divided. It turns them against one another in pursuit of recognition from the same master. Competing for scraps, fighting over promises, hoping that by being more obedient, more correct, more moral, they will finally be seen. It never occurs to them that those who are seen do not beg to be noticed. They seize visibility by making themselves impossible to ignore. Those who rise are not the ones who wait their turn. They are the ones who end the game. To see the illusion of fairness for what it is to free yourself. Not from morality, not from decency, but from dependency. From the belief that others will one day deliver what you are unwilling to take. Power does not come to those who deserve it. It comes to those who are willing to reach for it without apology. Who understand that justice, if it is to exist at all, must be enforced, not requested. That fairness, if it is to be real, must be carved into the world through action, not tears. So long as you continue to appeal to fairness as if it were law, you remain under the dominion of those who know it is fiction. They will continue to write the script while you speak only when given lines. And that is exactly how they want it. Victimhood is not a strategy, it is a condition, often real, often painful, but never sufficient to change the balance of power. The world does not respond to pain, it responds to pressure. It does not reward those who suffer the most, but those who understand how to use suffering as a weapon, a lever, a message. To position oneself perpetually as a victim may generate sympathy, may even gather momentary support, but it does not shift control, does not rewrite systems, does not build empires or dismantle thrones. The powerful do not concede to the cries of the wounded. They calculate, they negotiate, they retreat only when the cost of resistance becomes greater than the cost of surrender, and the posture of victimhood alone has never produced that kind of cost. There is a dangerous seduction in being seen as wronged, in collecting the currency of pity and moral righteousness. But this currency does not spend in the marketplace of power. There only results count. There only outcomes matter. No one holds the crown out of guilt. No one maintains an army out of shame. Those who control the levers of influence understand this deeply, and so they watch as the masses pour their energy into public lamentation, into declarations of injustice, into campaigns designed not to seize power, but to be acknowledged by it. And while the spectacle plays out, the game behind the curtain continues uninterrupted, the real decisions made in silence, far from the noise of protest and performance. When you embrace victimhood as your identity, you build your entire strategy around being wronged. But to be wronged is not enough to change the rules. Power does not respect pain unless that pain is turned into force. History is not written by those who suffered the most. It is written by those who turned suffering into action, into movement, into conquest. To suffer is inevitable. To remain there is a choice. The moment you elevate that suffering into a strategy, you begin to believe that your moral superiority alone entitles you to justice. But the world is not a court of morality. It is a field of competition, and in that field, appeals to fairness or innocence fall silent when the weapons are drawn. Victimhood also allows people to abdicate responsibility. If you are always the one being acted upon, then you never have to act. If you are always the one hurt, then you never have to risk hurting. It becomes a refuge, safe, noble, passive, but it is also a prison. It strips you of agency, of initiative, of the ability to act decisively. You wait, you hope, you demand recognition for your wounds, but wounds alone are not a demand. They are a report. And while you wait for justice to arrive, those who never asked for it are outbuilding, outmaneuvering, and outlasting you. The world does not pause for the wounded to recover. It does not slow down for the broken to be heard. It rewards those who keep moving, who keep building, who keep wielding whatever strength they have left, even if it is only enough to take one more step toward the fight. This does not mean you must be ruthless, but it does mean you must be realistic. It means you must abandon the illusion that recognition is revolution, that empathy is influence, that visibility is control. You must build beyond your pain, not around it. You must weaponize your experience into something unignorable. The most powerful movements in history were not led by people begging to be seen as victims. They were led by people who refused to be seen as anything less than inevitable. They did not ask for justice, they enforced it. They did not wait for rescue, they became the storm. And in doing so, they reminded the world that to be harmed is not your final role. Unless you choose to play it forever, power respects power, not pleas. This is the foundational truth that separates those who command from those who complain. You can beg, you can appeal, you can plead with the world to see your worth, to hear your voice, to grant you what you feel you deserve. But the moment you do, you place yourself beneath the one you are begging. You acknowledge their authority over you. You confess that they hold something essential that you do not, and in that instant you surrender leverage. The language of pleas is the language of inferiority. It exposes need. It reveals weakness. And those who understand power know how to exploit both. Power does not respond to the legitimacy of your claims, to the purity of your intentions, or to the sincerity of your suffering. It responds to pressure, to risk, to consequences. If you cannot impose a cost for being ignored, you will be ignored, not because the world is cruel, but because it is efficient. Those who rise to power do so not because they ask to be included, but because they engineer their own necessity. They become essential, indispensable. Their absence creates problems. Their silence generates tension. Their participation becomes the difference between success and failure, between profit and loss, between order and chaos. This is not achieved through righteousness, but through calculated relevance. Power respects what it cannot afford to lose. And to reach that status, you must build something bigger than yourself, something that cannot be dismissed or dismantled without consequence. This requires strategy, not supplication. You do not wait to be given a seat at the table. You build a table others are forced to approach, and when they come, you do not arrive with demands for fairness. You arrive with terms. Those who plead for fairness often fail to understand that fairness itself is not a fixed principle. It is shaped by force, by will, by whoever holds enough leverage to define what is acceptable and what is not. The rules are not sacred. They are negotiable. They shift according to power dynamics, and the ones who write those rules are the ones who can afford to ignore pleas. When you make demands without the means to enforce them, you become a background noise, a moral echo, a reminder of a grievance without the teeth to change it. You become something that can be tolerated, dismissed, endured, but never feared. And power does not respect what it can afford to disregard. To be taken seriously in a world governed by influence, you must stop looking for sympathy and start creating stakes. If your absence costs nothing, your presence means little. If your voice holds no weight, your words become decoration. Respect is not given to those who need it. It is given to those who make it costly to withhold. This is the game that power plays, and it plays it without apology. It does not care how loud you scream unless your scream disrupts something valuable. It does not care how right you are unless your righteousness puts something it wants at risk. If your moral stance stands alone, it is just scenery. But if your stance carries the force to change outcomes, to shift alliances, to block resources or command attention, then suddenly power listens, not because it agrees, but because it must. This is why effective actors in power do not waste time making moral appeals to those above them. They understand that morality is a costume, worn when convenient and discarded when costly. Instead, they acquire leverage. They build alliances. They create influence where none was offered. And when they speak not as beggars but as players, not as victims but as forces. They do not enter rooms asking to be treated fairly. They enter knowing they cannot be ignored, and that alone makes them powerful. Self-reliance is the ultimate advantage, because it removes the single greatest vulnerability a person can have: dependence. The moment you need someone else to give you what you should be building for yourself, you are at their mercy. The moment you expect rescue, you are already surrendering control. And the moment you rely on another to define your value, your strength, your path, you place your destiny in hands that will never prioritize your interests above their own. To be self-reliant is not simply about doing everything alone. It is about cultivating the mindset that you are the source, the engine, the origin of your movement. It is the understanding that while cooperation is useful and alliances are strategic, your survival and success do not hinge on the approval, generosity, or fairness of others. The truly self-reliant do not wait for perfect conditions, because they know such conditions rarely come. They move forward with what they have, not what they wish they had. They act while others plan. They build while others ask. And in doing so, they separate themselves from the herd. The world rewards initiative. It respects motion. It bends, not for those who plead, but for those who make themselves into immovable forces. Self-reliance means never making your progress conditional on someone else's permission. It means you do not wait for justice to be handed down. You forge it, enforce it, and carry it forward with your own strength. It means that when the doors stay closed, you do not knock again. You build a doorless house and let the walls come to you. Dependency, on the other hand, is often disguised as humility or community, but beneath the surface it is fear. Fear of taking responsibility. Fear of failing without someone else to blame. Fear of being exposed for what you have not built, what you have not earned, what you cannot maintain. Dependency weakens your posture. It turns confidence into request, strength into compliance, vision into negotiation. Those who are dependent become easy to manage because they are always waiting. Waiting for funding, waiting for validation, waiting for recognition. The self-reliant are not waiting. They are moving, and their movement generates pressure. That pressure creates visibility. That visibility creates opportunity. And that opportunity can be scaled, but only if you are the one holding the wheel. There is a reason why those in power seek to create dependence among those below them. A population that relies on its rulers for sustenance, stability, and protection is a population that can be directed. It is not dangerous. It is not volatile. It is predictable. That is why systems are designed not to make you powerful, but to make you comfortable enough to stay quiet. You are given just enough so that you don't take more. Just enough so that you don't challenge. Just enough so that you mistake survival for freedom. But self-reliance breaks that pattern. It says, I will not need what you withhold. I will not wait for what you refuse to give. I will not measure my worth by your reward. And once a person, or a group, or a nation reaches that state of mind, they become uncontrollable. The self-reliant do not mourn the absence of fairness because they never expected it to begin with. They understand that fairness is neither the beginning nor the end of any meaningful power structure. It is an illusion told to the obedient. Instead, they focus on building capacity. They focus on acquiring skills, resources, relationships, and vision that do not evaporate when support is withdrawn. They become dangerous not because they are violent, but because they are untouchable, because their rise cannot be slowed by delay, denied by gatekeepers, or undone by public opinion. They rise because they do not ask for permission to do so. They rise because no one can stop what does not need to be granted. Complaining is the language of those who have already accepted defeat in some corner of their mind, even if they still move their mouths like they want change. It is the external signal of internal helplessness, the confession that the current conditions are too strong to overcome. So the only available response is noise. To complain about the terrain is to reveal that the terrain has already beaten you. It is to expose that your plan was only ever going to work if the world cooperated, if the weather was right, if the winds favored you, and the game was fair. But the world does not arrange itself around your feelings. and the battlefield does not shift to make your tactics valid. The terrain is what it is, and the only question that matters is what you will do about it. You do not control the weather, but you control the armor. You do not command the sea, but you command the ship. So the one who wins is never the one who complains loudest. It is the one who adapts fastest. When you complain, you imply that someone else should come and fix what you don't like. You are signaling that responsibility lies somewhere outside of you, that you are waiting on a correction, a change, a savior. But while you wait, the decisive ones are already building tools for the exact same conditions you are criticizing. While you speak about how things should be, others are mastering how things are. While you gather allies in your grievance, they are gathering resources for their victory. Complaining does not change the field. It only distracts you from learning how to move through it. It is energy spent without return, a performance with no audience that matters, because the people who can change the outcome are not listening to your complaints. They are watching your moves. The terrain is not meant to be fair. That's not what terrain is. It is meant to test, to resist, to expose who has the will to push through and who needs the path paved before they move. Life, power, progress. They don't favor the most qualified in theory. They favor the most adaptable in action. The one who dominates the terrain is not the one who wishes it was different, but the one who studies it, masters it, and bends it to his purpose. If the mountain is high, he climbs it while others argue about how tall it should be. If the gate is locked, he finds another way in while others debate who should have the key. And in that process, the one who adapts becomes more than a survivor. He becomes a threat, because he no longer needs things to be ideal in order to advance. There is no honor in helplessness, and no reward for being the most vocal about obstacles. No great empire, no great victory, no lasting legacy was built by people whose first instinct was to complain. They adjusted, they revised, they recalculated, they adapted. If the system was against them, they studied it until they could predict its every move. If the path was blocked, they carved their own. If they were denied access, they made themselves so essential that access had to be granted or lost forever. This mindset is not born in comfort. It is born in rejection, in pressure, in being told no and deciding that no is not the end of the story. To dominate the terrain, you must outlast it, outthink it, outwork it, and that cannot be done while sitting still and describing how hard the climb is. The ones who win do not wait for conditions to improve. They become the force that moves through the storm. They do not pause to list the reasons why the path is unfair. They prepare for the path to be even worse tomorrow and still move forward. And as others gather around to share in mutual dissatisfaction, the adaptable ones are gathering strength, insight, and momentum, because they understand that the terrain is not a justification for failure. It is the proving ground for those who refuse to be stopped by anything less than absolute force. And even then, they find a way to keep moving. You have two choices: to kneel and hope for kindness, or to rise and claim what is yours. The first path leads to quiet despair. The second leads to power, so let them chase fairness like children chase shadows. You will build influence, not ask for favors. You will become undeniable, not pitiable. Stop begging for fairness and start becoming dangerous. Because in this world, the only fairness that exists is the one you force into existence. Thank you.